In a world where everyone is so privileged they have nothing better to do than whine about trivial nonsense, in a world where cultural appropriation happens every day, they need a hero. They need Culture Man.
Hi, I'm Culture Man, and I'm from the 50s. It's my job to make sure nobody steals anyone's culture in America. Here in the melting pot of cultures, that's offensive. A white guy with dreadlocks? This is only for the black people, even though they stole it from the Indians. Get out of here! An Asian school shooter? This belongs to the whites! An unemployed white guy? This belongs to the blacks, you culture vulture! A girl wearing a Chinese dress to prom? How dare you wear a Chinese product in America? So to everyone who's still culturally appropriating, you better cut it out. Or I'm gonna cut it out for you. The only inclusive way to behave is by segregating every race to their own culture.
I'm Jim Crow, and I approve this message.
What's up, everybody? It's Hunter Avalone here, and today I am finally talking about the thing that you've all begged me to talk about for so long. No, I'm not gay. But while we're at it, let's go ahead and talk about cultural appropriation. The idea that using any bit of any culture besides your own is somehow evil and racist. For those who don't know, cultural appropriation is a concept in sociology dealing with the adoption of the elements of a minority culture by members of the dominant culture. Now, the cultural appropriation debate has been going on for quite some time, but it was recently reignited after some extremely juicy drama went down on Twitter. Now, just a brief little trigger warning, this is about to get extremely offensive. I mean, get in your safe space, get in your cry closet, it is about to get terrifying. Basically what happened is this high school girl wore a Chinese-inspired dress to the prom. Yeah, that's literally all she did. A high school student who had less than 10,000 followers at the time went to prom wearing a dress. But believe me, my friends, this didn't stop the liberal hate mob from brutally attacking her on Twitter for wearing a dress in America. An individual by the name of Jeremy Lamb tweeted, "My culture is not your goddamn prom dress." His tweet garnered hundreds of thousands of likes and unleashed a flood of hate directed at this girl who was just trying to go to prom. Now, if you ask me, Jeremy here should maybe go and, appropriate some education and stop appropriating the white trash look. I mean, have we seriously gotten this absurd? Are we really this desperate to find some form of oppression? This girl is a private citizen. She is not a verified celebrity by any means. She's a private individual minding her own business. But all because this one guy got his made in China panties in a wad, she is now in the center of controversy and news reports, again, for wearing a freaking dress. Not to mention, she's not even disrespecting the Chinese culture by wearing it. If anything, wearing that dress is a sign of admiration and respect. Oh, right, and let's also try not to forget that we live in a free country and, well, we can wear whatever the hell we want. But after this ridiculous drama went down and this poor girl was thrown in the middle of all this negativity, I thought now was a good time for me to make my video on why cultural appropriation is just a load of crap. So without further ado, I present to you the truth about cultural appropriation. Truth is, cultural appropriation is segregation. I mean, since when has it been cool and trendy to claim that certain clothing or certain food is only allowed to be worn or eaten by a certain culture? Back in the 50s, when Jim Crow laws were in full force, water fountains, park benches, and bus seating were all reserved for people of color and people of color only. And that was considered extremely racist. Yet now we have these insufferable idiots who are claiming that certain things are only allowed to be used by certain races or cultures. You're not woke, you're racist. Pushing the idea that certain things are only allowed to be used by certain cultures is such a backwards idea. Think of it this way. What if one day we all decide that hot dogs are a white American cultural food, so only white people can eat hot dogs, and any person of color who's ever caught eating a hot dog is criticized and ridiculed as an evil, bigoted individual? you'd probably call me really racist for presenting such an idea, yet it's literally the same concept with cultural appropriation. Nothing is limited to one race or one culture. Part of what makes America so wonderful is the fact that so many different cultures can all live together in harmony. The US is the #1 biggest host of immigrants. Do you honestly think that with all these immigrants from all these different countries, that certain cultures won't be shared and exchanged? I mean, guys, we live in America where everybody shares and uses certain parts of other cultures. I mean, it's very common to eat Chinese food. Is that cultural appropriation? Another example are dreadlocks, a hairstyle that is commonly used as an example of white people culturally appropriating dreadlocks from black people. But if you look at some history, dreadlocks actually originated from the Indians with the dreadlocked deity Shiva. The Germanic tribes and Vikings were also known to wear their hair in dreadlocks. So to the liberal minds currently being shattered, by your logic, dreadlocks actually belong to white people or the Indians, and black people are culturally appropriating them. But are we all gonna just whine and complain and demand you change your hairstyle for the sake of our feelings? No, because we live in America, where cultures are constantly being shared. Feminists use American flag hijabs all the time. Isn't that cultural appropriation? I mean, they're literally taking a cultural piece of clothing and westernizing it. Oh, but no, apparently it's beautiful and empowering. Or maybe the girl who originally wore the American flag hijab is culturally appropriating American culture. I mean, she did take the most iconic symbol of America and warp it to fit her culture. Isn't that offensive? No. Check your hypocrisy. Everyone is already using bits and pieces of everyone's culture. I also think it's important to remember that most people who wear exotic clothing or eat exotic foods are not trying to cause harm. Of course, I'd understand if someone stole something that was sacred to a certain culture and then trampled on it or used it to mock the culture. I still don't think this is cultural appropriation, however. I just think it's rude and disrespectful. No different than, say, an atheist spitting in what a church considers holy water. The problem is, most people accused of culturally appropriating are just minding their own business, not trying to cause harm to anyone. This girl going to prom was just wearing a dress she thought was pretty. This is not causing harm to anyone, and anyone who claims this is problematic is probably an idiot. Listen, if someone feels their culture is being disrespected, they have every right to say so, but they don't need a slew of white guilt-ridden liberals getting offended on their behalf to the point of basically advocating for segregation. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine being so privileged that someone wearing a dress causes me this much distress. If you are even slightly upset by this, you are privileged beyond belief. Appropriation is defined as the action of taking something for one's own use, typically without the owner's permission. So here's the big question, liberals. In order to not culturally appropriate, who do the evil mayo crackers ask for permission? Which leads me to my next point. Truth is, one offended person does not speak for an entire race or culture. One thing liberals absolutely love is to use sad minorities as their political pawns to further push the victim narrative and continue to demonize white people.
This costume is extremely hurtful, not only for myself, but for the generations that had to go through this erasure.
Oh wow, a girl is crying. Her argument must be correct. But seriously, just if this girl is upset or just if this Jeremy loser is upset, does not mean the entire race or culture is upset. I mean, the fact that this one dude being offended was enough to unleash a brutal hate mob against this girl is pathetic and wrong. One offended person does not speak for the entire culture. Besides, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure referring to people of color as representatives of their race is considered extremely racist by the left. In a recent article posted by Vice, one of the tips and tricks for white people to make life for colored people less frustrating was to regard us as autonomous, unique individuals, not as representatives of our race. Yet 3 seconds later, liberals turn around and use a few offended minorities as representatives of their race. Not to mention, with this whole debacle, a lot of Chinese people said they didn't find the dress offensive. Why is the one offended guy a representative of his entire race or culture, but the non-offended people aren't? Simple. Because liberals want to further push the victim narrative and further their agenda. Truth is, it's not cultural appropriation. It's cultural appreciation. As I previously mentioned, if someone is mocking another culture, that's different. But most people partaking in other cultural activities are either curious about the culture or they're just trying to show their respect. The girl wearing the dress was seriously out of love and respect. It was not problematic in any way. Imitation is the biggest form of flattery. Plus, experiencing other cultures makes you appreciate the culture more. According to the Odyssey, traveling to a different country and experiencing a new culture teaches you a variety of new skills. You learn to become more social, flexible, open-minded, and independent. Exposure to multicultures or diversity will lead to better judgment. You will meet people of different religions, color, race, educational background, and many other things. You will also learn fun skills such as cooking, among others. It will greatly enhance your development as a person. So if it's not already clear enough, experiencing other cultures is usually a good thing and helps with the development of a human. Liberals need to just stop assuming the worst of people and understand that partaking in other cultures is not a bad thing. Plus, like I've already said, most people who are culturally appropriating are not doing so with harmful or evil intentions. They're just minding their own business. And I mean, let's be real, if you're really that upset by someone wearing their hair a certain way or wearing a certain dress, you really need to just grow a pair and consider keeping your mouth shut. Your feelings do not determine what we can and cannot wear. Also, imitating certain dresses or clothing is not usually offensive to these cultures to begin with. They really don't care. Mocking a cultural tradition is different than simply wearing cultural clothing. American clothes are repeatedly modeled after Paris, London, and other fashionable European cities, yet no one bats an eye. So why is it only a problem if it's a country liberals apparently think so lowly of they'd get offended? When American fashion lines base their clothes on European designs, it's most certainly a form of appreciation and acknowledgement that they are in fact the fashion leaders. So why are some countries or some cultures treated with a different standard? Isn't it all appreciation? Not to mention, when visiting European cathedrals, you're oftentimes required to dress appropriately, matching their cultural norms. In Russia, for example, it's considered rude to turn down vodka, as drinking alcohol your host gives you is a sign of trust and friendship. Oftentimes, partaking in certain cultural norms is actually the respectful thing to do. And finally, even Chinese commenters call the dress cultural appreciation, elegant and beautiful, and one even said culture has no borders. So all in all, culture is something that's meant to be shared. It is not limited or specific to one race or one culture. We ditched segregation in the 60s. Let's not bring it back. Stop getting offended on other people's behalf, and stop using one offended person as the representative of their entire culture. Thank you everyone for watching. Please give this video a like, comment below, and subscribe to my channel. Please share this video everywhere. Thank you.